Okay, perfect.
Hi guys, I'm Oliver. I'm the CTO of Augmento, and we basically look at sentiment data on social networks about crypto and quantify that. So on my screen, let's back on. So who am I? So I originally studied electrical and electronic engineering in the UK. Was involved in quite a few startups during university and then after university. Also went to a couple of accelerators. Did a lot of stuff with electrical engineering and later got interested in software and also machine learning. I was previously the quant lead at a crypto fund, also here in Berlin. We were focusing on order book data and trying to combine that with reinforcement learning. I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. So how did I get involved in trading? I actually used to work for a company that monitored concrete on construction sites. This is how it started. And we were collecting loads and loads of data. So we were monitoring the temperature of concrete on construction sites and telling people when their concrete was hard. And we were collecting millions of data points of data. And I got interested in how we could use this data. How could we predict, for example, what the concrete was going to be like in the future? How could we predict when there were going to be problems? What kind of problems could we predict? And so I reviewed the statistics I did at university. I started looking into neural networks, into deep learning, into Markov chains, things like this, and went really, really deep, and actually went pretty deep for a couple of years. And in 2017, remembered that I had some Bitcoin, and thought I can use this. Suddenly I can predict things in the future. It's a no-brainer. I can use these neural networks, this deep learning, to predict whether the price is going to go up or going to go down. And so I got interested in reinforcement learning and crypto trading. This is hard. I don't think I've ever done anything so hard. If you go on Reddit or you go on many forums, you go to machine learning forums, most of them will tell you it's impossible, but it's not. It's not impossible. But it has some major issues. So I'd say there are three big problems with reinforcement learning and crypto trading. The first one is that there just isn't enough data. So if you look at the data on the crypto markets, typically the available data is open, close, high, low, maybe volume, maybe number of trades, although quite a few people don't offer that. BitMEX offer things about funding. There are other bits and pieces, but the data is basically price. This is the data you have to work with, price and volume. And when you look at how much of that data you have from a typical exchange, so for example Coinbase, you have price data generally every hour. It might be every minute, or it might be every 5 minutes. But if you look at how many minutes of data you have between, for example, the start of 2016 and now, it's just not that many. In fact, we can calculate it. So it would be 365 times by 5 years, times by 24, times by 60, times by 60. So 157 million data points basically between now and 4 years ago. And that's just not enough for a reinforcement learning agent to learn how to behave in this market. So we started looking at order book data. And order book data is very interesting because there is just so much of it. If you look at the, for example, BitMEX, you'll typically have 1,000 people who want to buy and 1,000 people who want to sell all at the same time, and they'll all have limit orders at different prices, and you'll be able to see the volume of buys and the volume of sells. And this order book is changing pretty much asynchronously. There are people putting down orders, taking orders off hundreds, if not thousands of times per second or per minute. And so here there is just so much data, and there's so much information. So there's a lot of noise, but there's a lot of information in this data as well. But to use it, you need some crazy infrastructure. You need to be a really well-established fund. You need to be you need to have raised probably millions. You need to have a team of engineers. You need to have computers which are co-located with BitMEX or with Coinbase, and you need to be able to crunch all this data. If you're using machine learning, you need to be able to do backtests over years with incredibly powerful machines. And so it's just not available to most people. Not even medium-sized funds can do this. Oh, and also interfacing with exchanges. This is a huge issue. Anyone who's tried to write an API to interface with exchanges will know the pain. BitMEX, for example, I keep referring to BitMEX.
Specifically, crypto exchanges. I want to point that out.
Ah, yeah, sorry. yeah, specifically crypto exchanges. And so, some are okay, but yeah, the majority have a lot of problems. Has anyone ever interfaced with a crypto exchange? Which ones have you tried interfacing with? Yeah.
Yeah, but most of the exchanges, as of 2017 and early 2018, were in a very immature stage, also adding API capabilities that were still not very tested in a production environment. So a lot of challenges at the beginning working with these APIs and expecting that they fail at some point.
Yeah.
Which you probably don't have on the traditional financial exchange side.
There's so much more volume, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever experience the BitMEX, the system overload? Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, not only on the API side, but also on the user interface side.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I was even talking to head of support back in the days, and he was telling me they're actually really improving their infrastructure, but it gets eaten up by the increasing amount of users that are coming onto the platform day after day after day after day.
Yeah.
So they had to fight with an increasing amount of users and then adding more and more resources to infrastructure.
Yeah.
This is great.
And then the more users they get, the more people, the more difficult it is to run it. But then the more people want to go on because there's more volume. And so there are. This is hard. Trading is hard, but particularly reinforcement learning plus crypto trading is hard. But then around the end of 2018, I met these guys and started looking into the data that Augmento had. And felt that it really answers at least two, I'd say 2.5 of those big questions. So the data isn't just one stream of data, it's 100, almost 100 per hour. So we're looking, so the data fidelity is high, but there are lots and lots of dimensions to this data. And the trading timescales for sentiment don't need crazy infrastructure. If you're trading order book data, you need to be logging this order book data almost asynchronously. There's a huge amount of data, and your signals are going to be over a short period. So you're going to be trading in the region of seconds or maybe minutes, maybe hours. You're not trading over days for sure. But then with sentiment, you don't get a single tweet or a single Reddit post which is moving the market instantly on a broader scale. You're getting much more gradual build-up of bullish or bearish sentiment. And so yeah, so the data fidelity is really high, and suddenly you don't need this crazy infrastructure. You just have the data there, and it's easy to access. And how do we do this? So this is I guess our elevator pitch. We quantify market psychology, and we measure actually almost 100 topics and emotions on crypto social media in real time. For example, actually, who looks at Reddit or Twitter and looks at the way people behave on these systems? So what's like a typical tweet that you would see about someone worried about the market? I have an example. So some guy says that he bought Bitcoin or she bought Bitcoin last week. Should they put in more, or have they missed the trend? And our system labels that almost instantly, as being about FOMO, being about buying, and being about Bitcoin.
But you don't know that it's real, so this is...
No, that's true. But does it matter that it's not real? This is a big philosophical debate about whether it matters that the tweets are real or not. Is the social media affecting or is the market affecting the social media, or is the social media affecting the market?
No.
It could go either way. So we look at examples like this, and we really have a lot of these. So we're looking at hundreds, if not thousands, of these sorts of tweets, Reddit posts, Bitcoin talk posts every minute, and we're labeling them in real time using our own natural language processing classification system. I'll talk more about that in a minute. We aggregate this data over minutes or hours or days, and then we serve it through a very simple RESTful API. And here, I don't know if you can see this, but these are some of the, I mentioned two examples of topics and sentiments. In fact, we have a lot. So we have a huge number. And it's really capturing like the broad spectrum of the kind of crypto language. We've tried to capture every possible type of crypto sentiment. It took a lot of work, as Michael will tell you. We also subclass them. So we have, for example, sentiments. People are sad, people are panicking, people are annoyed, or specific things about technology. So are they talking about mining, for example?
But this is not from 100 topics which you mentioned, this table.
This is, yeah, that's what this is. This is the 100 topics and sentiments.
So this is 100 assessments in this.
Yeah. Actually, maybe it's interesting to talk about how we actually use these. So you might be wondering how we almost instantly classify this as being about FOMO, or about buying, or about buying, or happy or sad. We took a huge database of historic tweets, Reddit posts, Bitcoin talk posts. I forget how many, but hundreds of thousands. And we put them through, we present them, how do I say this? We manually annotate them as being as belonging to one of these labels. So we have crypto experts who are looking through, for example, this tweet, and they're labeling it manually as being about FOMO and buying in Bitcoin. And we build up a huge database of labeled data, of annotated data. And then we build a machine learning algorithm which learns to classify this tweet into one or more of those categories. So we do it manually on the historic data, and then our machine learning model is able to do it automatically in real time afterwards. So as far as we know, we are the only provider who's actually able to quantify pretty much the entire market psychology. We're not just classifying positive or negative. This is pretty common. We're actually looking at the full range of crypto jargon. And I would say that we're the easiest way to incorporate alternative data into a strategy. There are lots of other data providers who offer maybe even sentiment data in different ways, but not in a way which ties very closely with the data that you get directly from exchanges. So our data actually looks exactly like the same data you would get from an exchange, from the market data you get from an exchange.
One question. From how many independent people you analyzing this?
So we look at, we have three main sources. We look at Twitter and Reddit and Bitcoin Talk. And on Bitcoin Talk, we look at, we select boards on Bitcoin Talk, which are the biggest ones basically, and which are relevant to trading. For Twitter, we found that there was a lot of noise. As you mentioned, there are a lot of people there are a lot of bots, there are a lot of people who are talking about rubbish on Twitter. And so we selected the top 5,000 Twitter influencers. And then on Reddit, we've again selected boards which we feel are the most kind of specific to crypto trading.
So 10,000 then,
with Reddit, I forget how many.
Okay, approximately.
Yeah. But we're looking at thousands of posts per hour, per minute. Any questions? Could I ask who's technical here? So I'm also technical. So I'm sorry for those who aren't so technical. I've written quite a technical presentation. But if you have any questions on the way, please do ask.
I had a question. So
sure.
You mentioned this BitMEX funding and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something you currently are looking into? For example, the open interest rate and funding and so on?
We don't look at funding. We really focus on our focus is on quantifying the social sentiment.
Okay.
We are doing quite a lot of research now into developing our own strategies from the data that we collect, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And as part of that, we do look at how our data might impact funding, or how funding might be connected with our data.
Okay, yeah, because I started with this funding, some API stuff myself, so it's interesting to see what others are doing.
Yeah. Oh, it would be good to chat about that. Yeah. So tonight, sorry, the intro took a while actually.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, please take your time.
So tonight, I think we'll start by getting started with some of our data. So I think it'd be cool to just show you what kind of data we have, show you what we can do with it, how we can manipulate it to kind of get it to make a bit more sense.
Sorry, just for our future audience that will look at the video as well, or video recording, what sort of abilities or skills do you need to have to execute or work on what you are going to present us?
I'd say kind of pretty basic Python skills actually. I think, yeah, we actually have a repo for future viewers. We have a repo online where you can go and you can download our code very easily, including the code that we're using for this. And you can try it out, and you can, even if you're not technical, I would really recommend going on there and trying things out.
Okay. Python.
Yeah, but it's all Python.
Okay.
Python and APIs. Yeah, so we'll get started with some data, and then we'll look at how we can create a strategy based on our data. See how that kind of performs, and then actually try and backtest that against some price data that we have from BitMEX, and then experiment with other topics and sentiments. So we'll only look at a couple initially, and then expand to some others, and then also experiment with some different parameters. So yeah, I guess I'll get started. So start off by getting the data. So as I said before, we have a pretty simple REST API, which allows you to get all the data that you want. You can go on this API, you can get data which goes back to 2014 for Bitcoin, and that's data every hour, right up until now, basically. And you can get that for Twitter, for Reddit, for Bitcoin Talk, and we also have a bunch of coins. So we don't just do Bitcoin, we also do Ethereum, 0x. In fact, if I run this, hold on. You can see a list of the coins that we look at. I think the Wi-Fi here might be a bit slow. There we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, so here we go. So this is actually all in real time. So I'm querying the API directly. So we do Bitcoin, Stellar, Steam. We basically went through, as part of our research, developing the product, we went through to find the top, what we thought were not just the top 50 coins, but the 50 coins which would actually last. Because at the time there was also a lot of hype. So we can also see, get a list of our sources. So we look at Bitcoin Talk, we look at Reddit, we look at Twitter. And we can look at bin sizes. So we bin the number of tweets, for example, that we get over the last hour or the last 24 hours. And this makes it simple to use the data. Exchanges use the same method for binning trades. So when you look at candlestick data, your candlestick data is basically binned trades. And you're looking at the first trade in the candle and the last trade in the candle, the open and the close, and then also looking at the high and the low, the candle, the trade with the highest price, the trade with the lowest price. Yeah, and we can also get a list of the topics and sentiments that we look at. There's a pretty big list. I think we already saw it above with the big circle. But this gives you an idea of how many things we're actually examining, and also how specific they are. I mean, pump and dump is a pretty specific term. And finally, let's actually look at some data. So we're interested in Twitter data for Bitcoin, aggregated by 1 hour between 2019 April the 1st and 2019 April the 6th. And if I run that, we can see the counts of, for example, This is number 2. So pessimistic and doubtful is 1. If we count the index 1, that's 0, then that's 1. So we've had 2 tweets there on Bitcoin in that hour, which have been pessimistic and doubtful. Look at another sentiment, for example. Negative is the last sentiment in the list, and so if we look at the last elements in this list, it's this one. So there have been 39 negative tweets about Bitcoin in this hour. So you kind of get an idea of the data that we provide is how many tweets have there been that were negative in that hour. And sorry.
So that means that the people are looking what the influencer have told, and then just follow as in every trip or every nature field, just for the leader.
Not necessarily the leader. It's in the case of Twitter, it's the top.
Twitter is the
top 5,000 leaders.
So everyone has the same, I don't know, rating.
Yeah.
You know, because some influencer I think have more value than others.
Yeah.
So, but it's not rating them.
At the moment, no. So this is a super interesting field. At the moment, we don't rate them, but it's a no-brainer. This is something we will do.
Roadmap.
Yeah, this is on the roadmap. Let me add this to the list. Yeah. So yeah, it's more difficult to see other ones, but you can imagine now, if you get this list of how many tweets you've got every hour, you can get some idea of how the market feels about, at least how the people on these market feel about the state of the market. Yeah, so this is hard to see. This data is kind of like hard to make sense of. So the best thing to do is to graph it. So I actually prepared some data earlier. In this case, we're looking at Twitter, and we're looking at Bitcoin. And we've also got some price data from BitMEX. So we're looking at the XBT USD pair perpetual contract on BitMEX, because that's where the volume is. And let's load that and plot it. One second. Things never work when you.
At least we have great weather. In the midst of summer.
Then you have a lot of time.
Yeah. Sorry about this. There we go. So, I'm sure you've all seen this before.
Yeah.
I wonder where you were when you got in. I was about there. Oh no, hang on. November. I think 7,000, somewhere around there. So this is Bitcoin price, obviously, and then this is our data. This is bullish. So I've selected raw bullish signal, and I've plotted raw bullish signal, and that's what it looks like. I'll move up a bit. There you go. It looks a bit like audio, actually. It's kind of just a bit crazy. We are pretty far out, so it's understandable. So since we're so far out, let's zoom in and see what it looks like a bit further in. Let's hope that this plot works now. Sorry about this.
Don't worry. I'm sure you will share the presentation with us afterwards.
I will, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's December 2018.
So this is the price over 2 years, and we've zoomed in here, in this area here, and so you can see the price for that area. It's kind of shrunk a bit.
Since April, probably, huh?
So I think the date should be up there. Yeah, probably. It's the last few months. I think it's yeah, it's around April. Yeah. And again, this looks crazy, right? We sell this data. What can you learn from that?
So you decided that some of those terms are bullish, or what is
So this is only bullish data. This is the number of bullish tweets every hour.
so bullish is several topics of the 100, or what it means?
Yeah. So bullish is just one topic of the 100. Yeah. And tweets could be basically these tweets have been labeled as bullish. So yeah, again, this just doesn't look very useful.
Can you squeeze that a little bit?
Squeeze it.
Yeah, like you do on training.
No, sorry. You can't really do much with these plots.
No, but it would be interesting to see what would happen with this very noisy.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Hopefully that'll come. So again, it's not very useful by the looks of things. But what happens if we smooth the data? So who's heard of a simple moving average? I think it's pretty commonly used. So we can use a simple moving average on this data. And let's run it with a window size of 42. So this is 42 hour simple moving average. And I'll just have to delete this so it doesn't break. And if I plot that, here's what I get. So that's the same data, but I've smoothed it. And I'll let you just look at that for a minute.
But there's no correlation?
At some points, I would say.
I think it's qualitatively, I would say there is actually.
In which point, please?
For example, here, where the so this is bullish sentiment, and here bullish sentiment is increasing here, and then there's a pretty sharp rise.
This is a coincidence.
It could be, yeah.
So because there's a lot of peaks, and when one peak fits to another peak, to another peak, then you think that this is.
For sure, yeah. So it could be. It could be a coincidence, and I guess our job is to figure out if that's the case. To look at as many of these as much of this data as we can, and try and figure out if it is a coincidence. And we'll talk about that.
These two pictures show that there's unfortunately no correlation.
Well, let's see. We'll have a look.
One stream of 100, right?
This is also one stream of 100.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
So potentially there could be correlation in other streams.
Yeah.
Or correlation between streams.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, the correlations which I see, although I'm very biased, are this one. I think this is interesting. That rises around there. Here also, this rise around this large rise. And
so for you, it's interesting when the sentiment rises before the price. If you find those, there's the
yeah. But that is. It's also. I think it's also interesting if the sentiment falls after a fall. I mean, in this case, there's a fall here, and this then falls shortly afterwards.
So I think the question is rather, why is there at some point strong correlation? Why not? And maybe the other streams of data could point that out.
For sure, yeah. And combining these streams of data could be really powerful. Yeah. Especially when you have so many.
Why did you use 42 as a moving average?
That was have you read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
No.
It's a book, and 42 is a big number in this book.
Okay.
It's no, yeah. In fact, in life, it's the meaning of life. Apparently, according to this book.
Maybe read it.
Yeah.
But did you also try other moving averages then to see if there was maybe more correlation?
Yeah. So it's definitely worth adding that this is really just the first number I picked. I haven't. There's no optimization here. It's just yeah. I mean, maybe it's the answer. Maybe Douglas Adams had some. The author had some insight into crypto. But yeah. So for sure, optimizing could be really interesting. Yeah, so this looks more useful. There may or may not be value here. I think there is, and I guess we can explore whether we can do more quantitative analysis to see if there is.
It's just an example how to work with that data.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So we actually have a signal here. And we have price data, so can we use this to create a strategy? And we can. I'll show you. So yeah, so we take the simplest trading signal that we can create. In this case, it's the simple moving average crossover. Who's heard of the simple moving average crossover? So this is really the kind of bread and butter. Of particularly a technical analysis trader. I think if you do technical TA, you know about some moving average crossover.
What is on the axis? What is this? The data 2000 on?
This is time. So I should have been clear about that.
And which hours or what?
It's hours. Yeah. I'm afraid it was.
April.
It should have been dates, but my code complained.
So this is not correlating with something with Sunday or the Monday, one day or the night. This speaks.
No, it doesn't. You're right. Yeah. So it's just continuous. So it's literally just hours since around April.
But it correlates with the same graph above on the time axis.
Yeah.
I think that was the question about.
No.
Okay.
The question was what about these two graphs. I can say they are not correlating.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure. And only what is for which days a peaks comes. So this.
Yeah.
Can you explain when peaks?
Yeah. The times.
It's an interval a week. Or this is when night and day?
Yeah. It's hard to tell. I don't know. I can't answer that.
No, you can put in real time.
Yeah, I could. I did actually have the dates, I'll tell you what. If you're interested, after the talk, I'll plot them and I'll show you.
I think by adding some code, will
Yeah.
be visible.
For sure. Yeah. So one of the questions after the thing. Oh yeah.
Actually, we did some research into the seasonality question. So looking if there are any seasonality factors in the data, we also looked into that a bit, and it looks more like a trap. So thinking that you could buy on Fridays and then sell on Mondays, for example, is probably not going to be worth a strategy, even though maybe sentiment data might look like that, or even price data might look like that.
I think Johannes, you were also looking into it, right? Weekends, volumes.
I started creating my first trading view indicator on weekdays and versus weekends, and see, yes, if you can do things on them. But for example, I think that volume is always lower. I don't have any data to back this up, but it feels volume is in general lower on weekends. But we can discuss this later.
Cool. So we have the signal. How can we create a strategy? Let's look at the simple moving average crossover, since everyone knows about this. How can we use it? Just as a bit of background on this, the simple moving average crossover is where you have two simple moving averages, and they have different window lengths, and so they move at different rates. And because they move at different rates, they cross over each other. They're kind of like winding like this. You can make trading decisions based on whether one simple moving average is above the other or below the other. It's a super nice, super simple way of creating a buy and sell signal. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take some of our data, and we're going to split it into two parts. We're going to have a moving average, a slow moving average from our data, and a fast moving average from our data. So, and also we're not just going to use bullish, we're actually going to use bullish and bearish. Intuitively, you would say that when the sentiment is bullish, when there's lots of bullish sentiment, the price is going to go up, or it's an indicator that the price might go up. And when there's a lot of bearish sentiment, the price is likely to be going down. This is our intuition, this is our hypothesis. And so we take a ratio of these, and we say, we make a ratio of bullish versus bearish. So when bullish is high, this value is high, and when bearish is high, this value is low. And we call that the sentiment ratio. We take the sentiment ratio, and we create these two rolling windows. And one is fast. So this fast one has a window length of 24 times 7, because we're in hours, so it's 7 days. And the slow one has a rolling window of 14 days. And again, these are just really random numbers. These could definitely be optimized. And we take this fast signal and this slow signal, and from that we create a buy and sell signal. So when the fast signal is above the slow signal, we buy, and when it's below, we sell. And we can see this. Oh, it keeps giving me this error. I'll bring the dates back soon. Sorry. So if that didn't make any sense, here it is as a graph. So you can see we have the price again, And then these are our sentiment signals. So can you guess which one the slow one is? It's the red one. The red one is the slow one, and the blue one is the fast one. And you can see it's the blue one is responding to better to sentiment, to bullish sentiment. And if there's lots of bullish sentiment, it rises quickly. And the slow one responds more slowly, so it rises more slowly. But it gives us an indicator about whether the bullish sentiment over time is increasing. So we can see here that there's lots of bullish sentiment, and then here it drops below and there's more bearish sentiment. And then again it rises and it's more bullish, and it falls and it's more bearish, and so on. And from that we can create a buy and sell signal, where -1 is sell and 1 is buy. And so you can see here, I'll just point actually. You can see here where we want to go long, we're in this area here. So we're going long in this area when it's positive. And here where it's negative, we're going short. So actually that's a pretty bad that's a pretty bad move there. But here we go long again, and we see this rise. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
So this is great. We have a signal. We have some price data. We even have a buy and sell signal. So I'm itching now to test it. Like, does this actually make any money? I hope it does. And so we run a backtest. And this is anyone who's actually run backtests will know backtesting is hard. And this is a pretty basic backtest, but it's simulating long contracts, long perpetual contracts, and short perpetual contracts on the XBT USD pair on BitMEX. And I'll just talk you through how it works. So we start off with a P&L of 1 Bitcoin, one something, and then we step through the market. So for every step in the market, we check whether the buy and sell signal is greater than 0. So that's this signal here. So is this signal greater than 0? And if it is, we simulate a long contract. That's what this line does. We also, if it's not 0, if it's less than 0, we simulate a short contract. So here, if that's less than 0 there, for example, we're simulating a short contract. And we can run this and then look at how it performs. So here's our price, here's our signal, and here is the profit and loss. So you can see here where, for example, here where the signal was a short signal. It was saying go short. The price has gone up there, and our wallet balance has gone down because we were short. That's not a good position to be in. But here, where our buy and sell signal is positive, to say you should go long, the price has gone up, and also our wallet balance has gone up. So
Sure. And so you compare it to the dollar price? or you compare it also to what if you just hold?
This is just the dollar price right now. Yeah.
We're looking at Bitcoin US dollar trading pairs.
Yeah.
Because you might have more if you didn't do any trade, you just bought at the beginning.
You might have done. Yeah. The aim is to get more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's example strategy. We basically built a strategy here. I'm not saying it's a good strategy, but it's a strategy. It's a good start. It may not be good, but it's a good start.
What is the lower picture?
This one.
No, the third graph is the P&L.
The third graph. This is the P&L. Yeah. So this is the profit. This is if you had started here with, in fact, round about 4.5 Bitcoin. You would have, and you had run this strategy, then by about a month ago, you would have ended with 8 Bitcoin. That's what it is. Does that, yeah. I don't know if you remember the other graph from a while back, which was the whole last 2 years, right from the beginning of 2017. Well, we can also run on that. So this is just the past few months. Let's actually run it on. Let's run it since 2017, and look at how it performs. 1 second. So here's the price, again, you know this plot. This is the price since 2017 until a few months ago. This is our buy and sell signal. You can just about see where it's going long and then short, and then long and then short. And so sometimes it has longer periods of longs and shorts. And this is the profit and loss. So if we started with 1 Bitcoin, we would end a few months ago with 8. So yeah, and I should stress that this is just using sentiment data. This isn't using any price data for a signal. We're totally disconnected from the price here. Yeah, so that's building a strategy. We've also, how are we doing for time?
We would be now since 8 minutes in the Q&A round.
Okay.
But do you have more you want to talk about?
I have a bit more, yeah. If you guys are interested, yeah.
There's no one here under extreme time pressure. I would recommend to go ahead.
Cool. So I'm afraid this I had technical difficulties with the next bit, so I'm actually going to refer to an article that we wrote. So we're constantly writing articles and doing research, or doing research and writing articles about how we can use our data and things that we find out from our data, and trying to help people get started with that data. So this is one of the articles that we wrote. And I just want to show you some more, a bit more in-depth research that we did on this backtest. So the backtest I showed you there was pretty basic. The numbers I really picked at random. There was no optimization there. What do we do if we try a bit harder? What kind of results can we get if we actually try and make this a bit more profitable? So I guess the obvious place to start for us is to look at what other sentiments are there, what other sentiments and topics are there. We looked at bullish and bearish, but we have 100. We could look at positive or negative. We could look at hacks or FOMO. There are so many combinations of different sentiments. In fact, there are 8,649 possible different sentiments. In fact, I think that's wrong. I think they're at 86,000. I think, but I'll have to check that. No, sorry, I beg your pardon. 88,600. So we took our backtest, and we took the same parameters, and we ran the same backtest for all possible combinations of topics and sentiments. So, for example, obviously we compared negative with optimistic, hacked with technology, bullish and bearish, bearish with bullish, and these are the results we got, and they were very interesting. So, amongst the top performing pairs, these are the top performing pairs here, and these are the least well performing pairs. And what's really interesting, if you look at these, the pairs which performed well, is that generally there were positive sentiments or topics on the right and negative ones on the left. So here you have bullish, positive, team, announcements, community, and here you have bearish, scam, fraud, panicking, pessimistic, doubtful, bearish again, amongst some other things. Wales, not the country, this is something that we expected, but it's very cool to see it, to see some sort of quantitative analysis behind this. And also, if we look at the opposite, if we look at the worst performing topics and sentiments, there are negative sentiments on the side which should be positive. So there's bearish, bearish, bearish. That's a bad example. And on the other side, there's positive, positive, euphoric, excited. We found this really interesting, and this is also interesting for us because it's a good starter. If we're looking for good strategies, actually bullish and bearish, positive and negative are obvious examples, but what are examples that we wouldn't think of? And this is a really good start. So we took what we thought was a good pair, and also kind of used our intuition a bit and decided we won't pick white paper and bots because that's just so random. We'll pick something which kind of makes some kind of sense to us. And so we picked bearish and positive. And we decided to do a bit more research on that. And having picked our pairs, which are interesting, can we pick interesting window sizes? So the window sizes we used earlier were, again, very random. We were looking at 14 days or 7 days compared to 14 days or 42 days. But that was super random. How can we pick window sizes which make sense? So we've selected our pair that we're going to use.
Was this for Bitcoin?
It was for Bitcoin,
and,
yeah.
Did you also do for other coins?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
But all the code is on our GitHub, and it's very easy to try that. So if you're interested.
Yeah, because it could be also interesting to do the coins versus USD and then versus Bitcoin and Bitcoin with them and a lot of things.
For sure.
Yeah.
We did some really interesting analysis of Tether.
Mm-hmm.
Vision actually did it, looking at how sentiment towards Tether and how that correlated with the volume, the total market volume of Tether. Another super interesting.
Not very much, I heard.
We'll send you the article. It's super funny. Like, you get these crazy spikes of negative sentiment at the same time as spikes in the volume, the market volume on Tether.
Yes. I know, but for instance, the ongoing investigation.
Yeah.
All that, that's called sort of negative sentiment. Obviously, has not really a big impact.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Recently, coming out an article about how Chinese traders are using Tether for cross-border transactions in Russia. to launder the money, millions and millions of dollars. I think there was one OTC trader in Moscow was telling CNN that they had a daily volume of a couple $1 million just in Tether.
Jeez.
Yeah. And they literally said, I think it was the financial, like some financial monitoring organization in Moscow said, doesn't matter if Tether is a fraud or not, as long as the volume is high enough.
Yeah.
People don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So that's why I was thinking sentiment might not be that strongly correlated to the volumes, or maybe only for a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's the alternatives, and I actually looked at that for fun. They're not that big in terms of trading volume.
Yeah, make it die, USDC. Yeah.
How do you validate typos, mistakes, or newborn jargon?
We look at a lot of posts and tweets.
But
So
it's embedded in the algorithm, or it's a human?
it's embedded in the algorithm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's like
So we look at statistically, we look at so many examples of tweets and posts that it starts to learn these typos. So for example, Steam, for example, if you spell Steam with an A, actually I'm a really bad speller as well, so is it with an with an E, then yeah. So we pick our interesting topic sentiment pair, and we look at how that performs over when we still stick with our 7-day moving average window. I beg your pardon. We use the set. We change the window. We change both windows at the same time, and we look at how those how the P&Ls change. So here we've got the P&L. So this is the performance of the strategy on the y-axis. I'm sorry, it's a bit faded. And here we've got different window sizes, and each color is a different topic and sentiment pair. And we can see that some topic and sentiment pairs perform really, really well for particular window sizes, and not very well for others. So, I mean, for example, here I can't see exactly which one this is, but this yellow, this one that represents the yellow one, it might be fearful concerns and something else. Performs super well. I mean, we've got a P&L there of over 30 for that particular window size, but it drops off pretty quickly. Whereas here, this red one is much more stable. So it performs well over a range of window sizes, and this is really what we want. We don't want the parameters which give you the very, very best return. We want the parameters which give you a pretty good return over a wide range of market conditions. Because typically, for example, this green one, this green topic and sentiment will perform super, super well for one particular market, and it'll get crazy returns for, you know, if the market is going up. But for every other market, it won't perform well at all, and we don't want that because we don't know when we'll see that market. We want something flatter. So this is just changing one window parameter. What if we change both? So what if we change both window parameters, the long and the short window parameter? We get this crazy heat map. So here, we're looking at the bearish positive topic and sentiment, and we're changing the fast moving window size, and also the slow moving window size. And for each combination of window sizes, we run the backtest and we look at how it performs. What's the P&L at the end? And here's our scale. So it goes from it performed really, really badly as red, to it performed really, really well, which is green. and you can see that there are these interesting areas where the algorithm performed well, the parameters performed well. Sometimes there's like a real peak, like right here. There's like a huge peak. It's very green. So for these parameters, for 20, that's 26. For a fast-moving window of 26 and a slow-moving window of around 9, it got a huge P&L. Here, still good, but less good. But what's interesting is that you get these kind of islands of good performance in this kind of sea of bad performance, and it's these wide areas of white green that we're interested in, because it means if there's more white around it, it means it's more robust to changing market conditions. So we pick the ones we're interested in. We're interested in A, we're interested in C, and B, and D. So these are our selected parameter combinations, and then we plot them. And here, again, we have our price, and we plot each of our sets of parameters, A, B, C, and D. You see how those A, B, C, and D connect with the areas on the heat map, and these are the P&Ls. And you can kind of see that A is the blue one there. A is kind of a bit nuts. It kind of goes up like crazy, then drops down. It's a big drawdown there, and really goes nuts there, and then drops down again. And if you can imagine you're managing like if you can imagine you're managing a fund, and you're going to be very happy until you get there, and then if you lose, I don't know, like 10 Bitcoin in a couple of months, you're probably shitting yourself, and then suddenly you go crazy. You definitely switch it off. Whereas here, although the red one, B, or is it D? One of them, I think it's D. Although the red one actually doesn't end so high, it's actually a much better set of parameters, because it's got a much smoother, steadier rise. The max drawdown for this is much lower than it is for A, and you can see that corresponds to this area, which is the largest kind of island of white area on our heat map. Yeah, so that's the work we've done on backtesting. I guess I'd really encourage you guys to look at the work we've done on this. We've written quite a few articles, not just on the technical stuff, but also on actually how you can trade with this as a discretionary trader. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing your questions and getting your feedback.
Thank you very much. Let's give it a round of applause. So how extensive is the backtesting engine?
So right now we're developing it. It's getting more advanced every day. I mean, my background is actually heavily in developing advanced backtests, and so we're working on making it better. It's pretty good right now.
So you mentioned you were coming from a crypto fund previously.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this data is also useful to find correlations? The typical data algorithmic trader would look at.
Well, what do you mean?
Like the kind of data you described earlier, price data,
Mm-hmm.
volume, but also order book data. Maybe not as extensive as you were describing.
Mm-hmm.
Say minute order book data or hourly order book data.
Yeah. So the thing about price data is that if you're developing algorithms on it, you're using price as an input, and you're also using it to validate your algorithm. So it's very easy to find false kind of correlations there. I guess the one of the big advantages of our data is that it's correlated with price. It's arguably correlated with price, but it's totally decoupled. There's no if you backtest on our data, it's not coupled at all to the price data.
What I wanted to say is one easily use the API to find correlations between these data streams and let's say the ones that one already would have collected.
I think that you wouldn't find. It's hard to say, but I think that you wouldn't find the correlations that you would find in this data in price data.
Yeah, I agree. But for instance, other social media channels or let's say news articles, right? Not part of this particular data set.
Yeah.
But let's say there are news that move the market or certain coins.
Yeah.
Like there's an announcement about a coin listing at a important exchange.
Yeah.
Or about regulations that impact a quite large audience of traders. That will have an effect on the market sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like.
And then also maybe there are correlations in sentiment data on social media. So maybe there are early signs of such events happening in the data you guys have.
Yeah.
And then one might think, okay, maybe I can try and find correlations between these two data sets. So that's where I was coming from.
Yeah. That for sure. I mean, one interesting bit of analysis that I've just thought we should definitely do is looking at stablecoins. So one of our topics is stablecoins. If people write about stablecoins, we can see that, and it would be very interesting to look at Libra, and see how that's connected.
With the impact on stablecoins.
Yeah.
The volumes.
The volume of tweets and Reddit posts about stablecoins.
Yeah, that's indeed interesting. But who knows if we will ever see Libra launched.
Yeah. Well, we can predict. We'll be able to predict.
That'd be interesting as well.
Yeah.
I can ask. So, is your main goal to sell or like produce this data to others, or is it for like yourself? Because you also talked about this backtest, and if you already did some like trading and so on your own, maybe you could tell a bit. For example, this you show this. So with this like this trend following strategies, right? And in that case, is your goal to just do this, or do you have like any risk limits or so? And like, okay, sometimes you get these crazy BitMEX spikes.
Yeah. So I mean, trading is very hard, and what we're doing is also very hard. Managing the quantity of data that we do is a problem in itself, and then developing these models to properly analyze it is complicated. So it's not something I think we've had to decide where we want to specialize and what we want to be really good at, and at the moment it's continuing to develop the platform that we have for the data. Who knows what could happen in the future, but for the moment we want to get. I mean, we are really good at acquiring this data and processing it and serving it in a way that is really useful to funds, and I think that's our focus for the moment. But it's a question we get a lot. I mean, if we have good data, why don't we use it to trade? For the moment, that's not our core expertise.
Great. Any more questions?
If I follow the strategy, how many trades we see there in this graph actually to follow maybe the red line? I mean, is it a trade once every day or within an hour, several signals? How many signals you get?
Off the top of my head, it's in the region of it's like multiple hours to days. If we look back at this, you can kind of see this is over 2 years, and so some of these positions are we've held for quite a long time, and this is a similar. So like, I'm sorry about the dates. It was working, but I mean this has got to be days for sure. Some of these will be hours, but.
But I think it also depends on the input you're giving, the time frame.
Yeah, exactly. Like if the window sizes are short, then it's going to trade more. Actually, with this strategy, I should add that we were also taking trading fees into account. We're using the BitMEX taker fee. I think it's 0.075%. And we saw that
still going up.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
And we saw that this had a big impact on. You can see it here. This is actually very interesting. You can see it has a huge impact on window sizes which are small. So you see the reddest part of the graph are these edges. I don't know if you can really see that on here, but on my screen you can see it. And it's because when you have a small trading window size, you've got it trading all the time, and that costs money. So yeah.
Okay.
So the default setup for the P&L is just was it cross leverage or?
No, one-time leverage.
One time.
Yeah, that's the. I mean, the simulation isn't strictly accurate, but it's a pretty close approximation. The BitMEX, the way of calculating contract values on BitMEX is a little bit complicated, and funding as well.
Do you guys actually run some of your strategies in real time and then compare your P&L against these strategies?
We're actually
look at 28-day performance.
Yeah, we've actually just started running live strategies. Yeah, we have a guy in the US who's spun up strategies, and it's pretty close actually, surprisingly close. I'm not surprised. Very, very understandably close. Yeah.
Cool.
Can a normal person use it? I mean, or is it just for the big players, for the hedge funds and?
A normal person can use it. Yeah. It depends. It really depends on what sort of trading you're doing.
Okay, but I was guessing we didn't get any live data right now, or?
Again, if you would do, if you would need live data, then one would assume that you trade on shorter time frames.
Yeah.
Which then would also mean that you spend a more significant amount of your time per day into trading, which then would one assume that one is a more professional trader.
Yeah.
Or one to live from trading. So if someone would just want to spend, let's say, a few hours per week in trading, then I guess longer time frames and less amount of spending or attention to strategy would be.
Yeah. I think chat to us afterwards. We do have all of our data open. So up until a few days ago, you can go on our GitHub. Well, we have an open API. You can download data right back from 2014 for Bitcoin, and like 2016 I think for Ethereum, and you can run all these experiments that I've just done, and you can try things out and experiment with the data. And we're super keen to see what people can do with it.
For something else, but let's say that I would like to use this
sentiment data to add personality to a Telegram chatbot.
Mm-hmm.
What is your pricing structure like? What is your business model? How does it work?
Chat to us afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, talk about that.
That's private. Cool.
Cool. Any other questions? Or? I thought I saw a hand go up there, but no.
Okay, great. Well, one more? No?
No, it's
Okay, great. Well, thanks also for the question and answering round. Let's give him a round of applause. The contact details we can, or the audience of our video can reach you on.
I'm sure you can find it somewhere, but I just put my email address up here.
Excellent.
We can also post it in the Telegram group.
Yeah. Also, Telegram group will be shared in the event comments. And this presentation is already on the website or on the blog?
It will be. It'll be on the GitHub, and we'll link to it on the blog probably.
Excellent. Perfect.
Yeah.
Good. Then I would say let's grab a few more drinks. If anyone is interested, we can go downstairs to a trade as well. Have a few chats about current events and trading space. Or if also like
$10.
directly questions to the Augmento team, if you have more.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, man. It's great.
My pleasure.